On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla and EV podcast, Tesla announces its first quarter vehicle production and delivery numbers, and the news isn't the best, with fellow EV automakers Rivian and Lucid largely in the same boat. Plus, Tesla found its chef for its upcoming drive-in diner Supercharger in Hollywood. The regular version of the new Model Y is now available, and more. What's happening, friends? I'm Ryan McCaffrey here for episode 505 of Ride the Lightning, your weekly Tesla and EV podcast. I'm publishing this one on April 6th, 2025, recording it on April 4th, 2025, and I am flanked by two tired puppos, Daisy the Boxer to my left, and on the floor, resting next to me, is Mina the future service dog. And I am glad to be back from our family trip here, right just in time for a palindrome, episode 505. It reads the same way, front to back. I always get a kick out of those. And I just wanted to mention before I get going with what is going to be a very busy week of Tesla and EV news, that I've returned from our family trip, got back a couple nights ago, and because I recorded the extra episode at the same time as episode 504 before we left, due to that travel schedule, I didn't have a chance on 504 to take a quick moment to say thank you, a sincere thank you to all of you for listening to that and for your feedback as well. I can honestly say it was about 95% supportive, which I very, very much appreciate. And I'll tell you, I got some really unexpected, heartfelt messages too, which just warmed my heart, made me feel really good. So thank you all for taking the time to listen to that and for your feedback. And now we get back to the normal business of Tesla and EV news. Now, for this first story, I often joke that these mini news bites at the top of the podcast are like appetizers. I know I've used that analogy many times, but this time I'm going to talk to you about, well, almost literal appetizers, and that is because Tesla has found its executive chef for its imminent drive-in and diner Supercharger to be located in Hollywood, California. I saw this article on the New York Times, of all places, but it turns out the source was actually our friend Tesla tipster Sawyer Merritt. I will read you the highlights from the New York Times piece on this. Quote, "The diner will feature a 1950s retro charm, dazzling neon lights, the unmistakable scent of freshly grilled burgers, and hand-spun milkshakes," according to Mr. Merritt on X last week. It was reported that the menu will be in the hands of the chef Eric Greenspan, a Los Angeles entrepreneur who has a virtual restaurant company and a boutique brand of American cheese. The chef, Mr. Greenspan, is the founder of Alt/Grub/Faction, an incubator for delivery-only restaurants, including Two on a Roll and Brecky's Breakfast Burritos. As the culinary director of virtual dining concepts, he has helped invent delivery and pickup-only brands, including Pardon My Cheesesteak, I love that, which sells loaded fries and sandwiches on college campuses and in IHOP restaurants. Cheese is a leitmotif in Mr. Greenspan's career. His restaurant, the Foundry on Melrose, was known for a grilled cheese sandwich fortified with short ribs and apricot caper jam before it closed in 2013. Part of that space was later reborn as Greenspan's Grilled Cheese, now closed. He is the author of The Great Grilled Cheese Book. And that is all I have for you from the New York Times on this. And I love it. I mean, I wonder if Tesla is going to announce the menu for the drive-in diner Supercharger ahead of time, or if it's going to be left as a surprise once the place finally opens up. And I wonder if maybe those of you listening who are in the restaurant industry might be able to write in and give me a professional estimate on your part regarding the probable opening date for this most special Tesla Supercharger site. And I'm asking for that based on this timeline of the chef being announced. Like, those of you that know, those of you that are in the restaurant industry, does this mean we're 1 month away? Are we 3? I mean, I've watched The Bear, which is a great show, but I don't know if the chef getting hired means we're still a ways out, even though the building is nearly done, or if this thing really is going to be opening up very, very soon. Still, though, while I certainly don't pretend to know anything about this particular chef beyond what I just told you, I do like that he seems to have a background in comfort food and also quick service food. Just seems like it's going to be a good fit for a drive-in diner. And as I've been saying with every one of these updates about this site, I cannot wait to drive down and visit it once it opens. Next this week, the next appetizer on the menu is this. The folks at Tesla App iOS Update, their X account is Tesla_app_iOS, have decompiled the latest version of the Tesla app for iPhones, the iOS app, and found some fun stuff buried in it. Now, it's all code, of course, and I am not one with the skills to see through the matrix as they do, but here are the highlights as listed by the Tesla App iOS Update folks themselves. There are 4 things. Number 1, there is information in the app, the newest version of the app, about an early access program enrollment. There's also a Supercharger queue system, and then alerting of FSD version before subscribing, and finally, more robotaxi cleanliness feedback strings found in the latest version of the app. Now, that last one, robotaxi cleanliness feedback, seems pretty self-explanatory to me, so I'm not going to spend any time with that one. Obviously, when you ride in a cybercab or presumably any other driverless Tesla, you'll be able to give feedback through the app on how clean or not the car was. And great, that is functionality that should be there. But I want to talk about the other 3 items unearthed by the Tesla App iOS Update folks. First, an early access program. Now, this is nothing new. If you've been following Tesla for a while, you know that Tesla has done public early access programs before. Going back to the early days of the FSD beta, and then I feel like in the last couple years, 2-3 years, the early access programs seem to just become an internal only, employees only thing. So it would seem here that a public-facing version of this is on its way back. Now, second, and my personal favorite of the 4 things on this list, Supercharger queuing. This is something that I have been asking for going back many years now to my, shall we call it, an unexpected winter detour when I was on a holiday road trip from San Francisco to Phoenix some years back, when at one particular Supercharger, and my brain said it's Mojave, and I looked on the map, and it's like, yep, I think that was the one, which, interestingly, now Mojave has 12 V3 Superchargers. At the time, there were no V3s at all, and it was only 6. It was 6 V2s when I was there. But anyway, I was rerouted to the Mojave Supercharger, and everyone had been rerouted due to a closure on the main Interstate 5 artery north of Los Angeles at the Grapevine, like heading into the mountain range there outside of LA. So anyway, I got to the Mojave Supercharger, and it was, to say crowded would be an understatement. There were, I believe, over 20 cars waiting for a Supercharger. I guess you could go back and listen to that podcast, and I'm sure I said the exact number, but what was cool about it, and one reason I'm excited about this new feature about Supercharger queuing, is when I got to the Mojave Supercharger and I just pulled up, people had very politely and civilly and respectfully started a physical list with names of who got there when, so that, you know, they were creating a an order list of, whose turn is it next. And that whole time that I was there, nobody got angry, nobody got frustrated, nobody tried to cut the line. And that podcast that I did right after that, I talked about a queue system and how nice a thing that would be after that experience, although I certainly don't pretend for a moment that I was the first person to ever bring up the idea of a queuing system done, officially in the car through the interface. But that was my personal experience that led me to talk about it. So I'm thrilled to see that it does appear to be turning into a real thing, and I'm curious how Tesla's going to implement it. I mean, if they set it up so that the person behind you were to cut in front of you, will that person not be allowed to charge? Will the car just not take any juice from the supercharger? And if that happens, what if that person refuses to move their car and refuses to get out of the way? I mean, I suppose the easiest solution to that would be to fine them, which Tesla already does, right? They've had that system in place for a while, the idle fees. So maybe that person that's cutting the line and blocking the spot would be charged, or shall we say fined, $1 a minute, and maybe the fines escalate the longer they stay there. I don't know. I'm sure that Tesla's been thinking about the best way to implement this far longer than myself or any of us have. So I am confident that it will be a fair system once it rolls out, which, per the fact that it's been unearthed in the new version of the iOS app, hopefully is going to be soon. And then finally, the other thing from this update is the alerting of the FSD version before subscribing. And this is just a nice addition to the app that should ease a bit of a pain point for people who want to subscribe for at least 1 month, just wanting to try out a big new version of FSD, but their car ends up downloading them the previous version for whatever reason, and then those people feel like they didn't get their money's worth for half of the month that they paid for while they were waiting for the actual newest version that they signed up to try out. And so all of these things are just great new additions. And as I've said before, the Tesla software team, man, they just continue to be the unparalleled best in the automotive industry. And I don't think it's really even close. It's Tesla's software team, and way, way down the list, it's everybody else's. And so for me, as a longtime Tesla owner, now it's weird that I can say I'm a longtime owner. I mean, not nearly as long time as plenty of you out there that have had an S or an X for a long time, but I'm in my 7th year of Tesla ownership now, coming up on, I'm a few months away from my 7-year Tesla-versary as an owner. But anyway, it's just not even close, the Tesla software team and what they do versus everybody else in the industry. And I'm so grateful that we get all this stuff for free. For the most part. I know there have been a few things that are behind the premium connectivity paywall now, but most of these updates that we get to the app and to the cars are free for every owner. And that's just, unfortunately, such a rarity in this day and age. And it makes Tesla ownership so much better. I mean, I don't think you'd find a single person that would ever disagree with that owns a Tesla. Well, no, updates being free doesn't make my ownership. Everybody's going to agree with that. That is a pretty universal statement, I would say. So super grateful that these updates continue to, for the most part, be absolutely free. And let's hope that the Tesla software team will continue to be head and shoulders above the rest of the world. And the reason I say that is because just before I sat down to record the podcast here, Tesla's lead software engineer just announced that he's leaving. I want to say thank you to longtime listener and Patreon backer Michael Gallo for sending this Bloomberg report to me, which says that David Lau, who's been Tesla's vice president of software engineering since 2017, and he's been with the company for more than 12 years, has announced his departure internally. So, the first knee-jerk reaction to that, understandably, is, this could potentially be bad. But I'm not super worried because Tesla has shown over the years that they've got a lot of really great people waiting in the wings too. Like, take for instance, recent Ride the Lightning guest, Lars Moravy. He talked about this in my interview with him. He became the head of engineering, the VP of engineering, after Doug Field left in, I believe, 2017. And Lars has done a phenomenal job leading an awesome engineering team since then. He's done the Juniper, the Highland, the Cybertruck, and now his team is working on Cybercab as well. So, there's a good enough sample size there where certainly it is not necessarily doom and gloom if the head of the software engineering team that's been such an asset to the company and to us Tesla owners, it's not necessarily a given to have to worry that, oh, the engineering team's gonna go downhill from here. Hopefully whoever's next up will step up, as Lars did on the hardware engineering side all those years ago. And one more appetizer for you before we get to our main course, although I acknowledge that, to keep the food analogy going here, for many of you, this story that I'm about to read and talk about might be the Ride the Lightning podcast equivalent of the Red Lobster Cheddar Bay biscuits, if you know, you know, meaning that this story that I'm about to talk about might end up being your favorite part of the podcast, regardless of the main story to follow. Because, yeah, if you've been to Red Lobster, the Cheddar Bay biscuits are the best part. Like, it's better than any of their main courses. And I always fill up on I haven't gone there in years, but I do order them on Amazon sometimes. And I think once or twice I've seen the biscuit mix in Costco. And they, when you just when you use the mix, it tastes exactly like it does in the restaurant. So I don't have any reason to actually go back to Red Lobster as long as they keep selling the biscuit mix. Anyway, here we go. Back on topic. The launch series Model Y has officially concluded here in North America, and general production, if you will, on the new Model Y has begun. However, for now, at least as of recording this, it could change quickly, but as of recording this, only one variant, the long-range all-wheel drive, which is the same one that all the launch series are, is available. But of course, being a general production version, you're not forced to pay a one-price bundle that has everything in it. You can order anything you do or don't want on the long-range all-wheel drive Model Y. It starts at $49,000, so it is a slight increase over the equivalent outgoing Model Y. And, well, that's all of the bad news for those of you waiting for this moment. Now, I do acknowledge that there's probably plenty of you that are waiting for a long-range rear-wheel drive version of the Juniper. And that, again, could come anytime. We'll see. But the good news is if the long-range all-wheel drive is what you're in the market for, you can now get one for as little as $41,500 out the door with the $7,500 point of sale federal tax credit, of course, if you qualify. And here's another little bit of good news. All of the new Model Y, at least for now, come with the mobile wall charger again as well, which is certainly welcome news and also kind of unexpected, at least for me, because generally Tesla does not add things back in after they take them away. And we all remember that Tesla took them away in, I actually don't recall what year. Maybe it was 22, could have been 23. And I think it was, I'm sure this is what I said on the podcast at the time, it was probably a supply chain thing at that point. So maybe Tesla feels good enough about their supply chain there, and also they may have some research data, some survey data from Model Y owners. Of course, the Y being the most popular Tesla, the number one selling new car in the world, that maybe not including any charger of any kind proved to be a bit of a pain point for customers who were probably in many cases buying their first ever EV and got home and went, well, wait, how do I charge this? And so I am very happy to see Tesla once again including the mobile wall connector. Also good news for this new general production version of the new Model Y, blue and black paint options are back after not being available on the launch series cars. The blue is, for now, the same deep blue metallic that Tesla's been offering for the past 10 years, and that is not an exaggeration. The current deep blue metallic was introduced in 2015. It is a 10-year-old paint color. But if you interpreted Franz von Holzhausen's answer to my question about this on episode 500 the same way that I interpreted it, you know that it's just a matter of time before glacier blue takes over. So a couple things about blue. I have a couple quick thoughts. One, if you ever see a blue Juniper, the new Model Y in blue, regardless of what specific shade of blue it might be, you will instantly know that that car is not a launch series. Does that matter? No. Is it just a fun little factoid? Well, it's up to you, I guess, to determine whether or not it's fun, but these are the kind of weird little things that I think about as I drive down the road. And I'll see a blue Model Y, a new blue Model Y, which of course I haven't seen one yet because they haven't shipped any of the general production. And I'll go, oh, well, not a launch series. And that's just how my brain works with this stuff. But anyway, so that's one. And then number two, if indeed I am interpreting Franz's statement from my interview correctly, it means that in the grand scheme of things, there probably won't be a lot of deep blue metallic Junipers out there. Because if glacier blue is coming along pretty soon, that means it's going to be a pretty short window that there could ever be or will have ever been a Juniper in deep blue metallic. So it will make the deep blue metallic Model Y, new Model Y, a relative unicorn, or at least as much of a unicorn as you can have on a car that sells over 1 million units per year. As for the black paint, this one I'm going to just take my little victory lap on, if you would permit me a moment, because if you've been listening regularly, you know that I correctly predicted that when blue and black were a no-show on the launch series Model Y, that we would be getting a new blue and a new black paint. And indeed we have. Say hello to Diamond Black, which, while I obviously can't describe for you in any real accurate detail until I see it in real life, Tesla did post a little kind of concept video of sorts about Diamond Black paint on their social media accounts, so you can get a little bit of an idea. And I have to imagine that based on that little video that they put out, that Diamond Black has some silver metallic flakes in it, giving you that kind of little diamondy look in it, which would, if that's indeed what it is, would more or less make Diamond Black the replacement for Obsidian Black metallic that Tesla had offered all the way up through fall of 2018. That's when they discontinued that color, which means, speaking of unicorns, by the way, an Obsidian Black Model 3 Performance is a relative unicorn, as there was only about a 3-month window, maybe even a little less, where you could get an Obsidian Black Model 3 Performance, because the Model 3 Performance didn't go into production until July of 2018, and Obsidian Black paint was discontinued, if memory serves, around September of 2018. Anyway, Diamond Black is a $1,500 paint option. Now, if you're curious, as I was, I checked and was pleased to see that the Model 3 also has diamond black available, indeed replacing solid black, so no more solid black on the 3 or the Y. Strangely, though, the Model S and Model X are still rocking the solid black. And this is surprising to me, I have to say, because I just would have figured that a new color comes in. I mean, typically, or at least we've seen it in the past, with certainly with Ultra Red and Stealth Gray as well, where a new color comes in and it'll debut on S and X first and then find its way down to the 3 and the Y. In this case, Diamond Black is debuting on 3 and Y, and S and X, at least for now, don't have it. Now, that could be extremely short-lived, meaning perhaps that'll even get updated by the time you hear this. And by the way, as I talked about right when the new Model Y was revealed, what is that now? Two months ago? 3 months ago already, roughly. I think it was January 9th, if memory serves. Anyway, as I talked about right when the new Model Y was first revealed, the launch series was actually a pretty good deal when comparing it to a fully loaded old Model Y. In other words, equally an identically configured old Model Y. And that remains true now of the Juniper. If you choose all of the options that you had available to you for quote-unquote free in the launch series, so if you take all those extra cost options that were just bundled in with the $60,000 price of the launch series, so if you go with Quicksilver or Ultra Red paint, you select white interior, you choose the 20-inch Helix 2.0 wheels, you add the $1,000 tow hitch, the $8,000 FSD, it comes out to $63,000 on a general production new Model Y. And not only that, but the launch series Y has acceleration boost, which should be another $2,000 of value once it is presumably also made available on the general production Juniper. So you'd actually, if you bought a launch series when they were available, you would theoretically get a maximum savings of $5,000 off of that, which is versus a fully loaded equivalent general production Juniper. And well, hearing that should make you launch series buyers pretty happy, because that is Tesla did the opposite of charging you an early adopter fee on the new Model Y. They actually, as it turned out, gave the launch series buyers a pretty good deal. And hopefully, to conclude this, the long-range rear-wheel drive that no doubt plenty of you are waiting on. I know folks are waiting on the 7-seat variant too, and the performance Model Y is yet to come also, but hopefully the next step, sooner rather than later, will be the introduction of the new long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y. I wouldn't necessarily expect it in the next week, but in the next month, absolutely. I would expect the long-range rear-wheel drive to drop within the next month or so. All right, I have a lot more to get to, including the headline story this week, but before I do, a quick word from my friends at Accelerate Auto, who are redefining the electric car extended warranty. They are not just thinking outside the box, they have crushed and disassembled the box and built a geodesic dome instead. But looking ahead and building for the future, it's not anything radical. It's what innovative organizations do. That's why these folks developed XCare. I am a customer of theirs myself. XCare is a comprehensive extended warranty designed exclusively for EVs. They also, on top of this, re-engineered the entire customer experience, because you know how bad that can be when it goes wrong. Note that if you do want to cover your high voltage battery and drive unit, your vehicle could qualify for that coverage as well. It's also possible for you to just cover the battery and drive unit, if you're interested in that as well. Best of all, because you're a Ride the Lightning listener, you get $100 off when you select XCare's one-time payment option. Just use the discount code LIGHTNING. The website to go to, the link is in the episode description. You can click it there, but it's accelerateauto.com/xcare. That's XCELERATEAUTO.com/XCARE. Okay, the main story this week, as you knew coming in, since it's the very beginning of a new quarter, was also the episode title this week, is Tesla's Q1 production and delivery numbers. And as expected, the numbers were down. Tesla produced 362,615 cars and delivered 336,681 of them. For context, if we just look quarter over quarter, meaning compared to Q4 of 2024, which Q4 is always the biggest quarter of the year and Q1 is typically the weakest, it's down about 22% on production and 47% on deliveries. Now that might sound really bad, and it's certainly not ideal, but for some more context, if we look to the previous year and go back to Q1 2024 versus Q4 2023, that was a 14% dip in production and 25% dip on deliveries. So that's, it's not even that quote unquote good. It is worse than that, but just for a little context to frame it a little bit better. And if we look year over year, so if we compare the Q1 of 2025 that we just completed to Q1 of 2024, it was 433,371 cars produced in Q1 of 2024 versus the aforementioned 362,000 plus built in Q1 of 2025. So 2025 down 19% year over year. And on deliveries, we went from over 386,000 in Q1 of 24 to over 336,000 in the just completed Q1 of 25, a 14% drop. Now, I know that's not quite, even still, although the market probably doesn't look at it this way, but if I'm really drilling down here, I know that's not quite a totally fair apples to apples comparison, only because while it is true that the Model 3 changeover was happening a year ago at this time, going from the end of 23 into the beginning of 24, it also had already happened in one of the two factories in the world that produces the Model 3 versus now when all four Model Y factories, for all intents and purposes, went down. And they didn't literally go down, but they paused and changed over to the Juniper at the same time, all in Q1 of 2025. Now, I have it on good authority that the last of the old Model Ys was produced at the end of January of this year. So for 2/3 of the quarter, Tesla wasn't, well, it's not that they weren't making, but they really weren't selling their highest volume vehicle. Yes, there were inventory versions of the old Model Y, but they were definitely not full steam ahead as they typically are. Now, yes, they did start making the new cars in February, but deliveries of the Juniper only happened in the third and final month of the quarter in any region. And of course, when they did make those deliveries, they were only selling that fully loaded launch series configuration in that time. My point here is to say that the transition from the old Model Y to the new one was always going to be painful. Certainly, it's fair to ask how much the CEO's extracurricular activities played a role in these numbers. Now, I suspect it's probably a non-zero number, but to try and look at the numbers and look at the overall figures for Tesla objectively, I think we really won't know until arguably Q3, Because Q2 that we've just now started is still going to be a production ramp on the new Y. And more importantly, Tesla has only just now, today, Friday, as I record this, April 4th, started selling the non-launch series version of the new Model Y here in North America, as I talked about earlier in the podcast. I would expect that custom orders for all trims and variants, aside from, I guess, the performance version, which my best guess is we won't see the performance Model Y until Q3. But otherwise, I do expect that custom orders for all trims and variants, performance aside, will follow pretty soon, as I was talking about earlier, as they already have in Europe. But as we look at Q1, these numbers, for the duration of Q1, Tesla was only selling a $60,000 version of its best-selling car, one that can normally be had for 20% less than that, basically, than the price of the launch series. So price is always going to be the bottom line, which is the same thing I've been saying for a while about the Cybertruck as well, which I'll get to in a minute. In fact, I'll get to it now. Speaking of the Cybertruck, let's drill into these Q1 2025 numbers more closely. As has been the case since the Cybertruck went into production, Tesla is not giving us dedicated Cybertruck production and delivery numbers. Instead, they have lumped all of the stainless steel trucks in with S and X in the other vehicles category of the production and delivery report. And then, of course, as we've grown accustomed to for a number of years now, on the other side of the ledger, we have the Model 3 and Model Y category. And as usual, the 3 and the Y accounted for the lion's share of Q1 production and deliveries. In this case, 95% of the cars produced in Q1 were 3s and Ys, and over 96% of the cars delivered in Q1 of 2025 were 3s and Ys. The actual numbers here on the rest, we've got 17,161 combined for S, X, and Cybertruck, and 12,881 combined deliveries of those three cars. Now let's look at it year over year here, okay? Compared to this time last year, in other words, Q1 of 2024, for that window, Tesla produced 20,995 S, X, and Cybertruck, and delivered just over 17,000 of them, 17,027. So while those numbers are indeed minuscule compared to the 3 and the Y, comparing apples to apples, that is a pretty precipitous drop-off for those three cars, particularly when you account for the fact that the Cybertruck in Q1 of 2024 was at the very beginning of its production ramp, and at that time it was only available as a six-figure Foundation Series configuration in Q1 of last year. And in Q1 of this year, the general production Cybertruck was available, and for a good chunk of that quarter, the tax credit, the $7,500 tax credit, was available on the base configuration of the dual-motor Cybertruck as well. So, in short, there is no spinning it. The S, X, and Cybertruck numbers are really not good. I mean, these are the first pretty significant headwinds for Tesla in a long, long time, if you ask me. I mean, they'd been sailing on smooth seas for many a quarter. I mean, you've followed along, you've seen it. They've been easily selling every car that they can possibly build for quite a while now, and that is no longer the case, well, at least particularly with S, X, and Cybertruck. And so we will see how Tesla responds from here. And I'm really curious to see what happens. And kind of on that note, my prediction that I've repeated probably too many times at this point, because I'm going to have to back off of it and give up on it now. But my prediction for a Cybertruck price cut and or introduction of the cheaper single motor variant by the end of Q1, that was my prediction. Well, obviously that did not come to fruition. And I know I can keep shouting from the rooftops saying that a price drop on the Cybertruck is imminent. And if I do keep shouting that from the rooftops, eventually I'll be right. But instead, I will just simply take the L on this. And when it comes time to score myself on all of my New Year's predictions, I'm not going to give myself a point for that one. But I'll just say that I really am genuinely surprised that the Cybertruck is still an $80,000 truck. To me, these numbers put to rest any doubt about whether or not the Cybertruck has a production ramp issue or a demand issue. It's a demand issue. And I think the overwhelming majority of that is about price. So now, again, for me, it's just a matter of seeing when, not if, Tesla finally goes ahead and cuts the price of the Cybertruck. Unfortunately, whenever they do it, and however much they cut it by, and as I've said, I think it's going to be a significant price cut, meaning at least $5,000. But whenever that price cut on Cybertruck finally happens, it's going to be like the Grinch's Christmas morning for Tesla Fudsters. I guarantee you that they're going to be writing every doom and gloom headline they possibly can, even though Tesla has cut the prices on all of its cars over the years, and it's never really been a negative headline. But Cybertruck, I guarantee you, because that thing is so polarizing and unfortunately so politicized at this point, I can already see the negative headlines about the Cybertruck price cut now. There's no avoiding it, but if you're Tesla, you obviously just have to power through. You cut the price by, again, in my opinion, it's got to be at least $5,000 whenever the first price adjustment happens. And again, I hope it's as soon as possible, and or you announce the single motor rear wheel drive version at the same time, hopefully for less than the $61,000 that they originally quoted us on back at November 30th of 2023 at the launch. And as Franz von Holzhausen said in my episode 500 interview with him, I think Tesla's just gotta, they'll know that the bad headlines are coming, but as Franz said, you've just got to count on the fact that it's a great product and that the great product will win out in the end. Funny enough, I was on my family trip still when the numbers came in earlier this week, but I was still curious. I couldn't quite completely turn my Ride the Lightning part of my brain off. So I was curious what the stock price would do, knowing that bad numbers for Q1 were probably coming. And so I fully expected the Tesla share price to go way down when the next day after the day of, because the numbers were announced in the morning, so during market hours. And yes, the stock price number did manage to surprise me that day, but not because it went way down. It actually went up the day of the production and delivery number announcement. Unfortunately, it took a big dive the next couple days, but that seems to be a larger market forces thing rather than a Tesla specific thing, because everything was down on Thursday and Friday of this past week. So anyway, now what Tesla's got to do, and they're doing it, is they've got to ramp the new Model Y in all 4 factories as quickly as possible, and then we will see if the Model 3C, which is, I'm just going to call it that for right now, or if we want to just go back to the terminology I've been using, the first of the Model 2.5s that we're expecting to go into production by the end of this quarter, or at the latest the start of Q3, we'll have to see what happens with that in the coming couple months here. If it's coming, there's probably going to be a reveal event for it, and that event would likely be sometime in May. Maybe, they're going to just push it as late as they can, but it is coming soon. At least that's what Tesla's been telling us for the last couple of quarters. Now for some other EV news to finish up the news segment this week. Rivian also reported its Q1 numbers this past week, kicking off 2025 with mixed results as the EV automaker exceeded Wall Street's production expectations, but struggled with declining deliveries. This story comes via Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, the company reported producing 14,611 vehicles during the first quarter, above analyst forecasts of approximately 12,380 units. Deliveries, however, reached only 8,640 units, down sharply from the 13,588 vehicles delivered during the same quarter in 2024, a nearly 36% year-over-year decrease, adding to the company's growing inventory gap. While Rivian reaffirmed its full-year guidance, maintaining a target of 46,000 to 51,000 vehicle deliveries, the disparity between production and deliveries of nearly 6,000 vehicles stands out. The company has attributed some of the delivery shortfall to reduced commercial van shipments, which is no longer exclusive to Amazon and available to all customers. The effects of wildfires in Los Angeles, a critical market for the automaker, also temporarily impacted EV demand in the region, according to Automotive News. So thank you to Drive Tesla Canada there. Well, Rivian to me is, I know it's not, you can't directly compare them. They're different companies in different times, but Rivian is, generally speaking, to me, in the place that Tesla was back in 2016, where they've announced their more affordable, higher volume second generation vehicle, in this case the R2, while continuing to make an absolutely phenomenal higher end low volume vehicle, the R1. But Rivian still has to Evel Knievel themselves on the motorcycle, on the dirt bike, over the massive, massive gap between being a low-volume automaker and a high-volume one, as they intend to be with the R2 and then later the R3. I mean, in some ways, it'll probably be easier for Rivian to bridge that gap than it was for Tesla, because Tesla paved the way for them to do it. I mean, Rivian has the benefit of applying all of the lessons that Tesla learned in order to more smoothly make that leap. But in other ways, it will probably be harder for Rivian because the EV market itself is way more competitive now than it was back in 2016, when Tesla was pretty much the only game in town. Now, the good news is that Rivian has a tremendous product, plus they've got huge multi-billion-dollar investments from Amazon and from the Volkswagen Group. So personally, I am extremely confident that Rivian's going to make it. They're going to be okay. They're going to successfully jump over the Grand Canyon on the motorcycle, Evel Knievel style. Their product is too good, and they've got plenty of financial backing. But it's going to be tough for them, from a financial perspective, for a little while longer, probably. So it's not an easy road here for Rivian. And in fact, while we are talking about quarterly numbers from other EV automakers, Drive Tesla Canada also reports that Lucid set a new quarterly delivery record. According to figures released by Lucid, they delivered 3,109 vehicles in the first quarter. This was a 58% improvement over Q1 of 2024, so year over year, and its sixth consecutive quarterly delivery record, slightly edging past its previous record of 3,099. In other words, they did it by 10, by 3,099 vehicles delivered in the final quarter of last year. This steady growth trend puts Lucid on pace to surpass the 10,200 vehicles it delivered in all of 2024. Production during Q1 totaled 2,212 vehicles at Lucid's Casa Grande, Arizona facility, representing a 28% increase from the same period last year. In addition, more than 600 vehicles were shipped for final assembly at the company's AMP-2 plant in Saudi Arabia. The company has set a production target of approximately 20,000 vehicles for 2025. Lucid's production for the remainder of the year will get a boost from the introduction of its second EV, the Gravity SUV. After starting with initial employee and friends and family deliveries late last year, Lucid plans to begin wider customer deliveries of the Gravity by the end of this month, according to interim CEO Mark Winterhoff. Well, Lucid, in my humble opinion, has one key good thing in common with Rivian, and Tesla for that matter, and one thing that Lucid is badly lacking that the other two, Rivian and Tesla, have. So on the upside, they, again, by all accounts, have a tremendous product. The Lucid Air has been hailed by most major automotive journalists as not only a jack of all trades, but a master of all trades that can successfully be both a comfy luxury sedan and a Model S plaid rivaling beast of a sports sedan, whichever you prefer. Like, it can be both of those things. The problem for Lucid, or at least the thing that I think it's lacking that the other two automakers who exclusively make EVs have, is that at least they don't have at least one high volume vehicle like Tesla, who's got a couple of them, nor do they even have a plan for, or at least a plan with a near-term path to achievability like Rivian has with the R2. Lucid just has no such thing anywhere in its near-term future. And as we've seen with the Tesla S, X, and Cybertruck numbers and the Rivian R1 numbers, along with these Lucid Air numbers, whether it was a record quarter or not for Lucid, the market for higher-end luxury EVs is clearly not a growing one at all. In fact, if it's anything, it's the opposite. Now, the Lucid Gravity SUV, for its part, is getting rave early reviews. You may remember veteran car journalist Jason Camisa, if that name sounds familiar. It's because I've mentioned him here a number of times on the podcast. He did one of the first Cybertruck reviews, and his is my favorite. And I've been watching Jason's stuff on Haggerty ever since. He just does great work on a number of different really interesting historical cars. Anyway, I was listening to part of a semi-recent episode of Jason's car podcast, which hilariously, I love this. It's called The Carmudgeon Show. That's a great name. A+, no notes. And on there, Jason absolutely gushed about the Lucid Gravity. And as you heard, customer deliveries of the Gravity are supposed to start this month, so we should start seeing them on the roads pretty darn soon. But to finish my point here, I wonder, can Lucid survive burning as much cash as they are at the rate they're doing it while delivering on such low volumes? I mean, I'm not trying to knock them, I'm not trying to be mean here, but they're just not delivering a lot of cars, even as good as the product appears to be. So their production target for this year, as you heard, is 20,000 vehicles, and that's Air and Gravity combined. Tesla, for some historical context, I had to go back and double check this too, and my memory on this fortunately was correct. Tesla was making 20,000 Model S's in its first full year of production back in 2013, after initial production of Model S began in 2012. And just to give you the exact number, again, because I did go back and double check, in 2013, Tesla delivered 22,477 Model S's. So as far as Lucid goes, I hope they can pull through because they've got an American factory in Arizona that's created thousands of jobs, and by all accounts, again, they have awesome cars. But if I'm being honest, Lucid is the one that I'm least confident in terms of long-term prospects. Tesla, I think, will be totally fine. I probably wouldn't be doing a Tesla podcast every week if I didn't feel that way. Of course, that wasn't, when I first started the podcast, there was no guarantee at all that Tesla was going to survive. It's possible that I could have gone down with the ship as far as this podcast goes and just done the podcast up until the company went under. Like if they had failed to achieve volume production and thus profitability off of the Model 3, it's possible that this podcast would be over because Tesla itself would be over. But anyway, I'm very confident that Tesla's going to be okay, even with these current headwinds. And I really, really believe that Rivian will make it. Although, as I said, I think the journey will be difficult. Lucid's the one I'm not sure about. But again, I am rooting for them. And so I thought I would ask all of you this question. Which EV-only car company besides Tesla do you think is most likely to survive and thrive? So you heard my answer a moment ago, Rivian. And it turns out most of you agreed with me, at least in terms of the available options to vote for. So 250 votes this week, which I appreciate because I only put the poll up less than 24 hours ago from when I'm recording this, because again, we only got back from our trip in the middle of the week. 76% of poll respondents voted Rivian as the non-Tesla EV-only automaker that they feel is most likely to survive and succeed. Coming in second was Polestar with 14%, and then 5% of you voted for something else. 4% of you said Lucid, and I did have Aptera on the list, and they got 1% of the vote. So thank you to everybody that kindly took the time to vote in this week's Patreon poll. A reminder that the Patreon poll is available and open to everybody. You don't have to be a Patreon backer. You don't have to have any of that stuff. You don't have to be supporting me on Patreon to vote in each week's poll. I keep it open for everybody because I want everybody to stop by, cast your vote each week, make your voice heard. So you can do that on my Patreon page each week at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. The poll question typically goes up on Tuesday evenings. It didn't this week because I was still away. But look for that. Look for the Patreon poll question each week. And then the last bit of other EV news and news overall that I've got to share with you this week. This is a quick little fun story, and it's a bit of good news here in the non-Tesla EV space. The Mustang Mach-E outsells the gas-powered Mustang as Ford's EV sales climb. One more tip of the cap here to Drive Tesla Canada, which is where I saw this story, and they wrote, in the first quarter of 2025, the Mustang Mach-E posted 11,607 sales, a 21% jump over the same period last year, leaving the traditional Mustang coupe and convertible trailing behind with just 9,377 units sold, a sharp 31.6% year-over-year decline. Overall, Ford saw total EV sales climb by 11.5%, reaching 22,550 units in the quarter. Well, first of all, this is just my opinion I'm going to throw in. It doesn't really pertain to any of this. As far as the gas-powered traditional Mustang dropping 31.6% year over year, for me, I haven't studied this. I'm not an expert in Ford, but I wonder if that's just people not liking the redesign. Because I don't know about you, but I think the new design from this past year on the Mustang, not a fan. I don't think it looks good. But anyway, getting back to the EV topic, I certainly recognize that it's more of a symbolic victory than anything else that the Mustang Mach-E outsold the gas-powered Mustang Coupe, because it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison, since the Mach-E is a mid-size crossover SUV and the gas-powered Mustang is a sports car. And by the way, if you have apples to apples as one of your phrases in the Ride the Lightning drinking game this week, please allow me to apologize to your liver right now, because I think I've said apples to apples like 3 or 4 times on this week's podcast. But anyway, I do have to acknowledge that given the internal combustion engine Mustang's very long history, I really do think it's a milestone that the Mach-E has surpassed it, and it does deserve some recognition. And by the way, Ford, if you're listening, I would still very much like to see a proper electric sports coupe Mustang. Let's go. I mean, Dodge is doing it with the Charger. Unfortunately, all the reviews on that car have been very bad, but learn from that, Ford, and let's get a 2-door Mustang coupe EV with a ton of horsepower and a reasonable price. There's nothing good in the market. Tesla's not selling a 2-door coupe. They don't have one. Nobody else has one. So let's go, Ford. Let's do a proper Mustang EV. Come on, I dare you. I double dare you, Ford. Let's go. All right. That's everything I've got for you in another busy week of news from Tesla and around the EV industry. Stick with me, though. I will come back in just a moment with a few of your Ride the Lightning hotline calls right after this.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Well, I'm already over an hour into this thing, so I want to be respectful of your time. I'll just do a couple of your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls this week, and I'll get to more next week. So if you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic for the podcast, you can call into the Ride the Lightning hotline anytime. It's a toll-free number. The number is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And the other way that you can submit a question is to simply record yourself using your smartphone's built-in voice recording software and then email the file to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Either way, please try to keep your call to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many folks each week as possible. And a reminder that the Ride the Lightning hotline is kindly provided by lifeonrecord.com. Let's get started with Nick from San Jose talking Cybertruck.
Hey Ryan, Nick from San Jose here again. Just wanted to call in and share my thoughts about the Cybertruck that I've been driving for about a week now. Unfortunately, had a service issue with my Model 3, so they gave me a Cybertruck loaner. I've been driving it probably about 500 miles now because I've had to make some road trips. And the truck drives really great. It's steer-by-wire is awesome. The four-wheel steering's incredible. The car just feels like it pivots instead of has a big turning radius. And it's smooth, very smooth with the suspension. So it's great to drive, but the looks of it are just still... There's something to be desired, and I know it's polarizing across the nation, across the world, and, wanted to share my thoughts. I've thought this for a while now, is if you just deleted those sail pillars or had the top of the truck extend down vertically to the bed and give it that cab and bed traditional look, I think that would sell a lot better than what the current truck does. And I know... the logo of the truck is that triangle, and it's kind of like an icon now. But, in light of the company doing different variants for 3 and for Y, maybe they'd consider different variants of the truck. And maybe now, if those sail pillars aren't that structural to the car, to the truck, maybe they consider removing them and having a more traditional look. So yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on that, and maybe Franz, if you're listening, maybe that's in the future. Who knows? All right, Ryan, take care.
Thanks for your call, Nick. And I think it's super cool that they gave you a Cybertruck as a loaner. I want that. All I'm getting are beat up old Model Ys, but well, it's better than nothing, honestly. I digress. I do think you could be onto something with Cybertruck variants. I mean, engineering-wise, I have to naively say that I have no idea if deleting the sails and having a more traditional cab plus bed look, like you mentioned, would work with the hard freaking stainless, the HFS. But I saw another idea, online the other day that I thought could work really well, and that is a 3-row cyber SUV with a boxy look, which is, a lot of people like boxy SUVs, and it would work since, of course, the HFS can't be curved, it can only be bent. So that vehicle could be a rugged Toyota Highlander-like truck or SUV that I think could generate a lot of interest, particularly if it had 3 real rows in it, as opposed to the kind of barely there third row that you can get in the Model Y, or at least, well, I guess for now you can't get it in the Model Y. You'll be able to get it again soon, later this year. But anyway, I do hope that Tesla keeps the cyber thing going, even though that chart in the last quarterly shareholder letter, you'll recall that I asked Lars about it in my interview with him, seemed to suggest that the Cybertruck will be the only HFS vehicle, even if the cyber name will live on with the Cybercab. So, Nick, I hope you're right. I would love to see more Teslas made with HFS. Just time for one other call this week. It's from Will up in Canada in Ancaster.
Hey, Ryan, it's Will from Ancaster. I just had a quick, I don't know if I'd call it a feature request as opposed to maybe a bring back a certain option request. A few years ago, we had the ability to limit, I guess, the regenerative braking, either go to low regenerative braking or high. I've noticed that the Cybertruck has substantially stronger regenerative braking than the S or the X seem to have, which can cause a problem in Canadian winters. When the roads are snowy or icy or whatever, it's almost as if you slam on the brakes when you hit a patch of ice, because natural reaction for the driver is to lift their foot off the pedal, which automatically applies quite a bit of regenerative braking. So it'd be nice to be able to actually limit that for Canadians, at least anyway, in the during the winter months, maybe just when there's snow on the ground, just to have an option to go in and set it to low regen again. So anyway, hopefully somebody's listening and that's something that they can update for this winter. That'd be nice. Thanks. Take care.
Hi, Will. I think that's an excellent safety-minded suggestion. So I am happy to put this one out into the world in the hopes that the right folks at Tesla hear it. Thank you so much for calling in, and I hope that your Cybertruck is treating you very well. I appreciate everybody taking the time to call in. Again, I promise I will get to more of your Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls next week. And if you do have something to say, feel free to call in using either of the 2 easy call-in methods that I talked about at the top of this segment. Well, as for what's going on with me and my car, my new 2024 Model 3 Performance that I've named the Soul of Adventure, I am very happy to report that visiting a different service center, Tesla in Burlingame, appears to have fixed both of my 2 annoying squeaks and rattles. I'm very, very happy about that. As I drove home, I'm like, I think they got it. Did they get it? And I'm like listening intently the whole time, and I'm not hearing either the high-pitched squeaking noise or the plasticky rattle. They got them both. I actually don't have in front of me what it was. I don't think anybody really cares what the issues were anyway, but very happy that those appear to be rectified, because I'll be honest, I'm very OCD about NVH stuff in my cars. And the new Model 3 is so quiet and refined that any little thing just like jumps out and really triggers that OCD of mine quite a bit. Those two separate and distinct sounds were making me pretty nuts in a very first world way, I recognize, but they both appear to be gone now, and I am so thrilled. The car just, I know, now all I want to do is go out and just drive it all the time. Elsewhere in my life, so Mina, the future service dog, has been doing great, except she had a little something strange come up recently where my daughter noticed, she said, Mina's eyes look like they're bulging out of her head. And then my wife was like, I think you're right. And then I took a look, and I don't know, I guess maybe I didn't want to believe it at first, but sure enough, like, especially if you just take a picture and look at it, her eye, it was like she just had this wide-eyed look all the time. And I just kind of just didn't really think much of it. I'm like, well, okay, that's odd. Her behavior was fine, her appetite was fine, everything seemed fine. But after a few days, I thought, you know what, I should just Google this just to see. And I know that Googling any medical issue is usually not a good idea if, like me, you get paranoid about health stuff. But I did. I looked it up, and everything I saw said you should get her looked at. So I took her to a veterinary eye specialist. Yes, that is a thing that I had previously taken Maggie, my first boxer, for, and even Daisy was there for something minor when she was pretty young. So anyway, I was able to get Mina in there, and when they brought her back, just her, and I was sitting out in the waiting area, and then they said, "Okay, Ryan, come on back." And I walked in the room, and they said, "Well, I hope whatever this is, it's nothing that's going to jeopardize her chance to be a service dog." And he looked at me very earnestly and sincerely and just said, "Well, maybe." And it turns out Mina has extraocular muscle myositis. Basically, and the doctor showed this to me, the dogs do not have a bone behind their eye. Their eyes are just kind of these floating globes in their heads that are held up by muscles on the top, bottom, and sides. And then, of course, you got the optic nerves heading back to the brain. But it's really just those muscles that are those four muscles that are holding each eye in place. And it basically, she just has a condition that apparently is going to be a forever thing where those are inflamed. And so the inflammation of that caused, those to get bigger, and so her eyes get like pushed out of her head. And fortunately, it's not causing her any pain. Everything's fine. It just looks weird. In fact, I even asked the doctor, well, what would happen if I had never mentioned, if I had never, obviously I wasn't going to never mention, but if this had never been treated? And he said, no, she would see fine, she would be fine, but probably eventually one or more of those muscles holding up each eye would kind of atrophy and cause her eyes to kind of go googly in different directions, but she'd still see fine and be coordinated and move around fine, and it would be no problem. So, of course, I had to reach out to the puppy program manager at Canine Companions, the service dog organization that we're co-raising Mina on behalf of. And I was really worried that they were gonna, what they call is career change. If they don't graduate, meaning if they don't become a service dog like Zelina did, they get career changed. And I thought they were going to kick her out and career change her, which I didn't want because she's so, like, if I have said this before, I apologize. I'm no expert. I've only gone through this process once with Zelina. But Zelina graduated, and Mina, at every step of the way in terms of her age, has been ahead of where Zelina was at the same age. She's been a rock star of a dog. She has the will, the temperament. To me, again, my relatively amateur eyes here, just seems to have all the tools to be a successful service dog and help somebody out. And so I had a very long and productive conversation with the eye specialist about this and explained her role, and he had done work with another service dog organization, so he was very empathetic towards it. And he said, yeah, if they want to give me a call, if their medical people want to give me a call, I will talk through it in detail with them, and I would tell them that I think she's fit for service. Now, it's maybe going to limit her possibilities in terms of she's probably going to need eye drops for the rest of her life. So there's a cost to that, and there's the physical act of getting the eye drops in her eyes every day, which for now it's twice a day. And maybe not every potential person that she would be matched with could either financially or physically, be able to get those eye drops in. So anyway, the good news is that after reaching out to Canine Companions, first of all, I was stunned because this organization, Canine Companions, is turning 50 this year. Their official 50th birthday is the 4th of July this year. And they have never seen this. I thought there must not be a single medical condition that in 50 years of raising thousands upon thousands of service dog puppies, now granted, not all of them make it, but of all the dogs that have come through their program in 50 years, surely they've encountered this before. And apparently they haven't. So that was interesting. But the good news, they're keeping her in the program for now. They did say, all right, well, she can go ahead and get spayed in a few months when she turns a year old, because she's not gonna be a breeder candidate anymore with this eye condition, which completely understandable. So she definitely won't be a breeder as her mother was, but hopefully she will still make a great service dog for somebody if myself and Michael, my friend who's co-raising her with us, if he and I do our jobs, and then if she does well once we turn her in and she goes up to the campus, the Canine Companions campus, for her professional training, which will be in November. But that was the kind of weird Mina situation that's gone on since the last time I recorded a proper weekly podcast before our trip. But I'm just so glad that she's in the program. And fortunately, when we got back from our family trip and I picked her up from Michael's house, the medication that she's on, she already looks way better. Like, her eyes look pretty normal. Like, if you looked at her right now, you'd probably never know that there was anything weird going on with her eyes. So that was all strange, but all's well for now, and hopefully it will stay that way. Okay, time for your Tesla pro tip of the week. It comes from David in the aforementioned Casa Grande, Arizona, home of the Lucid factory. David, take it away.
Hi, Ryan. David from Casa Grande, Arizona once again. I have what I consider to be a pro tip regarding FSD. I believe I was on version 12.3.6, and it was working perfectly fine. It was working great, actually. And then I got the update to 12.4, if I'm not mistaken. But it was terrible after that. It was just completely unusable. It was as if it had regressed by a couple of years. Well, I finally tried a camera calibration, going into the service tab and then calibrate cameras, or camera calibration, and tried it again, and it worked flawlessly. So if anyone has issues when they update to a new version of SD, or that it's significantly worse, try camera calibration. That may help. Worked for me. Thanks, Ryan. Take care.
Thanks, David. This is definitely worth trying if you see strange behavior from one version to the next, or really at any time where it previously wasn't happening, I suppose. I'm glad Tesla lets us do this right from our normal car menu without having to either bring the car in for service or go into the potentially dangerous waters of service mode in order to do it either. So thanks again, David. If anybody else out there has a good Tesla pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, I welcome and invite you to call in with it. And you can call in the same way that you would call in for the regular Ride the Lightning hotline segment. There's the 2 easy call-in methods for that I told you about earlier in the podcast. Some friends of Ride the Lightning to mention before I scoot out of here for this week. I know it's already been a fairly long podcast, but I want to mention AbstractOcean.com. They've got a ton of great aftermarket Tesla accessories, in fact, for a few other cars as well, the Rivians for one. So if you visit AbstractOcean.com, you click on whichever car you own, that'll sort all the products by the products available for your car. And if you see something you like, throw it into your online shopping cart. And when you get to checkout, use the coupon code RTLPodcast to get 15% off of your first order. That coupon code again is RTLPodcast, all one word, no spaces. They've got a lot of different lighting kits in different colors and different brightnesses. Those tempered glass screen protectors, super popular as well. Just take a look. You will not regret at least going over there and browsing. So take a look, abstractocean.com. Next up, the Snap Plate and the newer, stronger Snap Plate Plus, available for 3Y, X, and S. Oh, and Cybertruck as well. You can get yours at everyamp.com/RTL. This is the front license plate bracket that I recommend if you either want or are legally required to have a front license plate bracket front license plate on your Tesla. It's a nice minimalist design. If you want to take it off, it'll come off without leaving anything behind, unlike the license plate frame that Tesla gives you. And it also is just, again, it's not going to get in the way visually of anything. Nice, clean, minimalist design. Take it off if you're detailing the car, you're bringing it to a Cars and Coffee car show. Put it back on if you're going to be parking somewhere like at a parking meter or something like that. So it is a safety-optimized product with breakaway features to sacrifice itself in a worst-case scenario, like a parking accident or a car wash. The Snap Plate Plus, meanwhile, strength-optimized with hardened features for maximum strength. Both are made from recycled, made-in-the-USA plastics with stainless steel reinforcements. Get yours at everyamp.com/RTL, and for a discount, use the coupon code RTL as well. Immaculate Reflections, very talented professional automotive detailer here in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. If you're in or going to be here, I do recommend you bring any car that you love, whether it's your Tesla or something else in your garage, over to Immaculate Reflections. You'll need an appointment. He's got plenty of cars there at all times, so you'll want to get in touch ahead of time. You can do that from the website, which is irdetailing.com. And when you reach out, make sure to mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and any work that you have done, you'll have the Ride the Lightning listener discount applied. Maybe you want to do paint protection film on the front end of your car, or the front end and sort of the rockers and the key areas. Maybe you want to do PPF over the whole thing. Maybe you want to do paint correction to get your paint finish looking as good as it possibly can. Maybe you want to do ceramic coating because you don't really feel like having to wax your car the traditional way once or twice a year. Just ceramic coat it and you're good to go for many years. As my 2018 Model 3 Performance, still good to go on its original ceramic coating. So again, the website is irdetailing.com. Finally, my Patreon, that is the way you can voluntarily choose to support what I'm doing here at the podcast. And I would be humbled and grateful if you did decide to pledge your support. It's a monthly thing, and the support tiers start at just $5 a month. And for that $5 a month, you'll get early access to each week's podcast, and you'll get an ad-free version of each week's podcast, and you'll get that early. So hopefully you find that appealing. If you are kind enough to step up to the most popular tier, that's the $10 per month tier, you'll get the early access, the ad-free, and you'll get access to all of those weekly lightning round mini episodes that I do exclusively for Patreon. There are over 130 of them up there now. So as soon as you join, they're all available to you. And I try to keep them pretty evergreen so that they're as interesting to listen to now as they were when I first uploaded them. So the website again is patreon.com/Tesla podcast. If you have the kindness to not only support me on Patreon, but to do so on an annual basis rather than a monthly one, I do extend a 10% discount if you choose the annual pledge option. You can subscribe/follow this podcast totally for free on any of the major podcast services, whether it's Apple Podcasts or TuneIn or Spotify or YouTube Podcasts. Just search Ride the Lightning Tesla Podcast. Should come right up. Just click the follow button and you're all set. That way, every time there's a new episode, which with this podcast is always every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, you'll get a push notification on your device reminding you that the new episode is available. And lastly, the referral program. It is going, so not on the new Model Y currently. In fact, actually, I should just double check that. Just make sure that that hasn't changed now that the Model Y has gone into general production. Oh, let's see. No, it looks like it's not showing. I clicked new Model Y, but it's not. Okay, let me make sure that that's still. It's weird. It's there, but there's no. Oh, my referral limit has been reached. That's why. So don't use my referral link because I'm done for the year, or at least until they reset it again. Use somebody else's, because that way you'll get $500 off a new Model 3 for sure, maybe a new Model Y. I can't verify right now. And you'll get $1,000 off of a new S, new X, or new Cybertruck. Just a reminder that your order must be placed through the referral link. So ask your friends, ask your family, ask your coworkers. If you're ordering a new Tesla, make sure you're using someone's referral link. You can follow me on X as well as Instagram. My username on either of those is DMC_Ryan. And that will about do it. Before I go, I just want to say hello and thank you to all of the upper tier Patreon backers. These very generous folks get their names shouted out each and every week at the end of the podcast as one of their many Patreon perks. Another of those is being invited to each month's Patreon Zoom Hangout, which is going to be, since I just got back, I wanted to give people ample notice. It's going to be next Saturday, the 12th. So that'll be coming up. The invites have already been sent out for that. I look forward to chatting with a whole bunch of you. So let me start by shouting out the newest Maximum Plaid backer, Kim Bay. Kim, thank you so much for your generosity. And now let me shout out the rest of the Maximum Plaid backers. They are Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Adam Lavoie, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Dustin Hart, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Adam Christie, Damon Klein, Jeff Brown, Jerry Slinger, Clayton Goodfellow, Michael Mizrahi, Kenneth Corbett, Brian Bertoglio, and, yes, of course, the newest one, Kim Bay as well. A big thanks to the Roadster in Space tier backers, Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from near Philly, American Home Contractors, Doug Carey, Rav, Michael Gallo, and Tony Figueroa. And then finally, the grandfathered in plaid level supporters. They are George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk in quotes, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. And that concludes a very long episode 505, the palindromatic episode 505. Good to be back, live as it were. I do hope you enjoyed the interview, the second interview with Ben Schaefer from Unplugged Performance last week, talking a lot about their upfit program with law enforcement. That really could be super cool if we start seeing more and more Teslas as police vehicles here around the country and around the world. But really grateful that Ben took the time to sit down with me so that I could put that episode together and then sneak away with my family for a little R&R, a little time off. But happy to be back. We've got the earnings call episode coming up in 3 episodes from now. It'll be episode 508. No doubt there will be plenty to talk about between now and then. There always seems to be. And so for a snoozing Mind of the Future Service Dog and an also snoozing Daisy the Boxer, my name is Ryan McCaffrey. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you all so much for your attention. And I will see you back here next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.